Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here. Today we're going to be continuing to talk about loneliness, and one of the things that I was really wanting to get out there, I'm sure if you stumbled upon my video that you have been kind of in the search for how to handle a season of loneliness as a Christian single. And so I just want to be there as a light and as an encouragement to you, because I myself have had a really hard time finding Christian content for people who are single, and kind of out of the range of popular single age, which I feel in the Christian circle can be anywhere between 17 years old to, let's say, high end 26. And past that age range, you are just lost. Like, there's not a lot of programs out there for singles just past that 26-year-old mark, and that really breaks my heart. Especially now in this day and age, I feel like a lot of people just kind of chase after careers. They want to get finished with their education. They also want to try to get out of debt. So they're not really focusing on relationships as much in that younger age range. So I just feel like Christian singles are kind of left wondering, like, what do I do? How do I handle this season of loneliness? I've accomplished all my goals. I'm out of debt. I went and got my degree. I have the job that I'm looking for. And now you're kind of stuck in that season of loneliness. So this series is really going to tackle a lot of what you run into as a Christian single. And today what I wanted to go over are just some things that other Christians tell you of why you're single. And I have personally been told all of these things. I'm sure there's a lot of them, but I feel like this is like a list that everybody kind of gets as a Christian single. So I'm just going to go over them with you. I have a little notepad. I'm not fancy enough to have a computer and a desk out here. So I'm going to grab my list because I don't have them memorized. So bear with me while I read this. The first one that other people tell you as a Christian single is, you just need to find your contentment in the Lord, then your husband will come. I cannot tell you how many times I've been told this. I feel like people, when they're trying to make you feel better about being lonely, they want to have a solution to your loneliness. So this is a go-to, especially within the Christian community. And while it is good advice, I think you can really hold like a bitterness and a resentment towards God if you are content in Him and He hasn't sent you a husband or a spouse. Like if you're a guy, like a wife, it can start to create like a wondering of, well, is God just not hearing me? Like, I've found my contentment in Him, but I still haven't received a husband. And I've really struggled in this area because you can have a lot of condemnation over you whenever you believe this. I want to call it a lie because it's not like a miracle fix all, find your contentment in the Lord and then you get a husband. I can think of plenty of Christian singles out there who have really found their contentment in the Lord. They're working and serving Him, but they still haven't received a spouse. They still haven't had that husband or wife. And in that, I think that's where that advice can get like a condemnation over someone. So if you've received that advice and you have really just laid that desire for a husband or a wife before the Lord and you have found that contentment in Him, I just want to encourage you to know that just because you've done those things and haven't received a spouse does not mean that you're not in a place of contentment in the Lord. and don't allow that to condemn your heart. It's not a miracle cure-all. You may go through years of being content in the Lord and still not receiving that spouse. So hopefully that like encourages you to know that you can still continue on and you can still know that you're right with the Lord. So the next point, I'm going to read this again. You just need to stop looking, then your husband will come. Oh man, I cannot tell you how many times I've been told this. Oh man, I think I might throat punch the next person that tells me that. Permission to throat punch. Anyone who says that to you, you can send them to my page. Anyways, but in all seriousness, this is another condemnation I feel that can come over a Christian single. It's just really kind of an inconsiderate thing that people say, once again, trying to fix your loneliness. And I just want to encourage you that you don't need to just stop looking. I think that they don't want you to stress over it. It's like, I think when people are trying to have you can liken it to when people are trying to have a baby and people come up to them, well, whenever you stop trying to have a baby, that's when you're going to have a baby. And I think that is really rude to say to someone as well. You know, it's said throughout the Bible that we should pray continually. It tells a story about the widow who was wanting protection, and she went before the king and she just kept asking and asking. And then the king finally said, because you've been so persistent in asking, then I'm going to send this to you. And the Bible is like giving an example there, like to keep pursuing, keep asking. So for someone to say, oh, well, you just need to stop looking, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that you should be continually open to a relationship, that someone might come along that you weren't expecting, or getting on like a dating app, or you know, sliding into someone's DMs or messaging them on Facebook. I think it's good to put yourself out there, and to stop looking isn't necessarily wise advice in my opinion. So I think as a Christian single, you should be willing to put yourself out there, continue to pray, don't give up. Like, I want to like say the exact opposite of that advice. Like, don't give up searching for your spouse. Like, obviously don't let it consume you. As a Christian, we shouldn't let anything consume us except the love of the Lord. So I just want to really encourage you in that. Like, don't let that condemnation sweep over you, because how is that healthy to completely give up that desire and just kind of smush it down and not hold out in faith? Like, isn't it a better and stronger testimony to say, hey, I prayed for this, hey, I was expecting this, hey, I told other people that I was looking for a spouse, I was believing? And I think that would be such a stronger testimony than, oh, I just gave up and then I got my husband, which there's so many testimonies like that. There's so many testimonies, but that's where I think it can get discouraging for you if you have let it go. You're like, well, where's my husband? I've let this go. I've submitted this to the Lord, and I'm still single. And I think that's where condemnation can sweep in there. So I just want to encourage you that if you're struggling with that, don't give up the search. Keep praying, keep interceding, keep hoping for a godly husband. Don't let the fixes of society and other Christians for your loneliness fill you with a false hope or a false expectation of what's going to happen if you do what they told you to do. So anyways, on to point number 3. You just need to get involved more in the church. You'll meet him there in ministry. Once again, I have been told this multiple times. Another thing that Christians say to try to fix your loneliness. While the intentions there are really good, and I'm not against serving in the church, I encourage serving in the church, but I think to tell a Christian single just to go serve, whether it be in ministry or children's ministry or just being a greeter at the church. I feel like those are the jobs that people give Christian singles, and that kind of like hurts my heart a little bit. It's like, okay, well, you just need to be serving in the church where other people aren't serving, and we're just going to give you this job because you're the Christian single. And that is like, that really hurts my heart sometimes. It's like, maybe you should take that single out to dinner. Maybe you should really focus in on if they're dealing with a lonely season and text them or call them or try to hang out with them instead of just putting them in a place of service and asking more of them. So that was kind of a rant for people who aren't single. But the person, you're watching this video, so obviously you're probably single, but you could tell someone else that. Anyways, back to the main topic here. I think that once again, if you're serving, if say you go on this mission trip and you're like, okay, keeping my eyes open for my future spouse, and you go on a couple mission trips and you still haven't found your spouse, I think it can be very easy to get kind of discouraged. Like, Lord, I'm following you, I'm seeking after you, I'm serving you in the ministry, but I still haven't received that spouse. My heart's desire is there, and that's where almost a bitterness can creep in. And I think that's why this advice is really terrible, because it can kind of set up an expectation of, well, if I'm not receiving this, then the Lord has somehow let me down. And so I just want to encourage you to let that go. If you're serving in ministry, you should be serving because you have a heart to serve. You should be serving where you want to serve, not just where people want to put you, because that also can create a bitterness within your heart, just even towards serving. If you are serving, you should pray about where God wants you, and really, even if it's where nobody else is really thinking you should serve, if the Lord is calling you into an area of service, that's where you should go. And you shouldn't go in the expectation of, oh, I'm going to find my husband here, or God's going to reward me with a husband. You should go with the expectation of, God, I'm being poured out for you in this ministry, and I'm doing it because I love you. And that's really the heart you should have behind ministry. And just a side note, God can bring your husband at any time. You don't have to be serving the Lord. You could be pumping your gas and he sees you and he comes up to you. That's a really terrible example. I don't think anyone has that story, but like, you can be anywhere. You don't have to be in ministry to find your future spouse. So I just want to encourage you, like, don't let that condemnation sweep over you. If you're serving, it should be out of a heart to serve the Lord, and really nothing past that. So the next point is, you just need to work on yourself before God can send a godly man into your life. I'm going to say that again. Things that people say. You just need to work on yourself before God can send a godly man into your life. I think that is probably one of the most condemning things that another person can tell a single Christian. And I want to kind of break it down, because I'm not saying don't take godly advice. If there's things that someone notices about you that need to be worked on, obviously take someone's correction. But to say that you need to be at this perfect place to receive a gift from the Lord is really contradictory from the Bible. The Bible says that the Lord wants to give you a good gift. He is a loving Father. So you're not going to have to be perfect in order to receive a godly spouse. You are both going to be imperfect when you meet each other. And through that marriage, it's like a perfecting process. You're both going to bring some imperfections in. So to think that you're somehow going to be perfect going into marriage and he's going to be perfect is just really going to be disappointing when you get married and realize that you're going to let him down, he's going to let you down, but it's through Christ and just loving each other that you're going to grow. So with that, still pray that the Lord reveals things to you that need to change and need to grow, but Don't let that condemnation of, oh, I have to fix this, this, and this before God can send me a husband, because that also can be disappointing. Like if you spend time, like say in counseling, self-help books, marriage books, how to deal with confrontation, all these things that you do to better yourself, and you feel like you're really whole and you've forgiven and you're loving people, and then in that wholeness you still don't receive that spouse, once again, that can be condemning. Like, oh, well, I'm there, but God still hasn't sent me, what I've been praying for. So in that, I just want to encourage you, if you kind of feel like you're in that place, like keep hoping for a future spouse. Keep diving into the Lord. Keep being the person that the Lord has called you to be, to shine a light. And when you change your perspective more into just being a light and an example for the Lord, rather than, oh, I need to fix this, this, and this before I can be a godly wife. So just coming at it from a different perspective. Once again, just having a heart for the Lord and loving Him no matter what your circumstance is, you're still going to live to please the Lord. And so my last point is, your standards are too high. You need to lower them. Then your spouse will come. This isn't necessarily advice that I received from other Christians. This is actually kind of something I received from guys that I've dated in the past who are mad about my standards. And so I think a way to make you kind of do what they want you to do is they'll tell you, hey, your standards are too high, you're never going to find anyone. An example, I guess, would be if a guy wants you to move in with him before marriage. He's really, say you're really in love, and he just wants to practice living together to see if you guys can get along. And you as a Christian say, no, I can't do that. Then they would say, oh, well, your standards are too high. You're never going to find someone who isn't willing to live with you first, or sleep with you before marriage. So I want to encourage you, like, those are lies, okay? God has set in your heart standards through reading His Word and through godly counsel. And if you have standards, don't lower them just because someone's telling you that's why you're alone still. The reason that you're alone isn't necessarily a list of reasons that I just gave. It's really just the timing of the Lord. And I think we can get frustrated with that. We can get frustrated with, well, God, I have these standards. I've followed after you. I've really set my heart and my life before you, and I'm still not receiving what I've been asking for. And right there is where you need to decide in your heart, can you still love the Lord even if you don't receive the things that you've been praying for? And I think that's a really good question to ask yourself right now. If you're watching this video, maybe just getting before the Lord and being real with Him and asking Him to help you, accept where you are, and just to pray and ask Him for peace in your heart, to love Him despite not receiving the things that you've been praying for. And that same token, not to give up praying for the things that you've been asking for. I think Satan can really get in there just with so much discouragement and say, well, you haven't received this. It's been however many years and you still haven't received this. Like, you might as well give up. And nowhere in the Bible have I really studied where it's just give up. It's like God wants us to remain faithful. He wants us to finish the race well. In Hebrews chapter 11, it talks about people who hadn't received the promise of the Lord and how they still were faithful to the Lord even when they didn't receive the promise. And I think that's where we need to stand as a Christian single, just to really boldly follow after the Lord, especially in times that we're in right now. The world is really crazy right now, and the world just needs light. so you as a single can be that light and be that encouragement. So hopefully these points are helpful to you to maybe let go of some condemnation that you've been carrying in your own heart, maybe some discouragement that you've been carrying. And really, my hope for you is after watching this that you can be restored to a powerful prayer life with the expectations that God is going to provide a godly spouse for you, to keep interceding, to keep praying, to keep walking with Him and serving Him out of love and serving Him out of a joyful heart. So thanks for listening, and hopefully you can come back next time.